Hello, everyone. It's time for another edition of The Late Challenge. We're back on Mondays. We apologise for all of the messing about. I hope that you stuck with us. It's been worth the wait. There is still a little bit of messing about, though. This fella's still here. As you can see, I invited him back because you all loved him so much. Robbo is still deep in house hell. I do not envy him one little bit, although he looked like he enjoyed his trip to London. We'll hear about that next week. But for now...
You say that. You said that last week.
I did say that last week. And I did actually text him earlier today and say, you all sorted? And he was a bit like, oh, no.
Oh, Gareth, what are you like?
Well, I know. But no, well, so it has to be him next week because next week is the last show before his birthday, I believe. So...
he has to create a build-up buzz around it.
Well, no, I'm going to give him his present.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
we've got to do something fun. We've got a whole great agenda, but after last week, we went really football heavy last week. So I thought this week we'll try to get a little bit more input from you, the viewers, find out exactly what it is you want to know about us. So I asked you all to give us your questions about absolutely anything. And most of them are still about football. So we'll be talking. So we will be going through a lot of your questions. We will be discovering some of the other hot topics of the week so far. But before we get through any of that, an absolute ringer, which doesn't matter to you because you've not read the agenda yet. Anyway, do you ever get into a situation where you are competing with yourself?
What?
So, for example, when you just started a new visa and you've got another one on the same road.
Oh, that.
Just in general, but just do you ever feel like you're struggling because that one's so great? How do you then do something better?
So this is not a philosophical question. This is a me-specific question.
Well, no, it's something that you can have an understanding of. The reason why I say this is because I'm still trying to put together my Glastonbury set.
Okay.
And I made probably a mistake of listening to last year's set yesterday. Oh. And then I was thinking, bloody hell, this is really good. Like it hit all the notes that I wanted it to hit. It was perfect. People still love it. People are still listening to it now. And I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to top this?
That's a slightly different twist, right? That's being influenced by yourself and thinking, I want to take my work somewhere else in terms of the direction of artistic direction. But actually going back and listening to the old work, seeing the old work, you go, Jesus, that was not as good as it gets, but I really like that. I get that vibe every now and again with the pubs I do, because some of them I move on to because I'm designing them, and so I get into a mindset where I get in the building, I'm working with the various craftsmen I'm working with, I'm out there sourcing stuff, I live it and breathe it for the 2 or 3 months it takes to do it.
Yeah.
And then the 2-3 months afterwards, because I want to see it's run properly, I want to feel it, I want to experience it as a customer. Every other night out I'm in that gaff. So what the knock-on effect is that then other gaffs I've done, I don't go into sometimes for months at a time.
Yeah.
And then occasionally, with that gap period perspective of time, I go back in, I go, oh, I like this one a lot. I might like this one the best, right? And that's what you're talking about, I think, in a roundabout way. But that's not a bad thing. I think that's a really good thing. In terms of competition, no, that's a sort of business thing, really. That's an old-fashioned, an old-school economic concept is, are you, the economic term is, or business term is, do you risk cannibalizing with yourself? If you open a pub on one street and 2 blocks down you've opened a not a million miles dissimilar pub, are you just competing with yourself? I've always gone down the route of thinking, and it's sort of an act of faith, really, that if you put like-minded businesses close to each other, you create an enclave of that type of business. Let's put it this way. I tell myself I'm not afraid of competition coming nearby, especially if it's not dissimilar to mine in terms of hopefully its quality and approach.
Yeah.
Because I go, well, hang on, that gives the customers who are coming to me more reason to come to my locale again and again and again. Just makes, let's put it this way, rather than you competing for the same business pile of money, crudely, you're making that pie bigger.
Yeah.
So they're slightly two different concepts.
Put it more
You're
in the
talking
oven.
about more an artistic one, which I think is quite interesting. But anyway,
Yeah, so the artistic side of it, when you were talking about the idea of spending time in one place and then going somewhere else, what that reminded me of, like a musician who writes an album and spends a lot of time hot house and writing the album, and then they've got to go out promoting the album. and talking about it, and then they've got to go out and tour it. And so you kind of get into this place where you spend all this time in the world of this album, and then you go on to the next cycle, and it's like, I don't really want to think about that anymore until you get maybe 2 or 3 tours in, and suddenly these songs become classics, and you're like, oh, I really like that. We should play more from that album. And so the concept of spending so much time and effort and creative juices on one thing and then just kind of leaving it aside and going on, that's kind of where I want to be. But for all of you out there, I am still in the process of putting together this hopefully masterpiece that I'll be playing in a couple of weeks. So I am appealing for your efforts, for your help. If you were doing what I'm doing, playing a set at Glastonbury, I want to know, what's your first song? What are you coming out of the gate with? How are you kicking in that door?
Into the ring with.
Yeah, exactly. Like a ring walk song. That kind of thing.
I would have thought, tell you how to do your job, suck eggs, but isn't it an evolutionary process? It's not like you did playlist X last year and playlist Y can't overlap it at all, right? Or do you feel
I do feel that.
Shouldn't it be an evolutionary? Like if I move, look, it's one thing saying my newest project is it's going to be my best work, right?
Yeah.
I think anybody thinks they're doing something within a creative sphere or artistically should commit to their new work as the best thing they've done, even if they think I've had periods in my career I think I might have hit a bit of a high watermark and I might never do anything as good again. But you've got to tell yourself you are, and you've got to have that ambition. Otherwise, you're going to fall short before you've even started. But what you're talking about is whether you fear you want to totally go at a tangent rather than evolve.
So I want people who liked last year's to be able to like this year. I want the same vibe. I want a lot of maybe even the same artists, just not the same songs.
Right, now that I was going to say.
Yeah,
that's
so
an
I can
approach.
do, So you can find different places within the same vibe. But we've got loads of comments coming.
We're going to talk about pub playlists later, aren't you? Because this is exactly the place I get to. Yeah,
we are very much going to talk about pub playlists, a very important subject for both of us. But I wanted to give a shout out to Kieran Daly, who said hello. Hi, Kieran. Joseph Tyrrell, the picture of Verts you saw in John Lennon Airport was from when Bayer Leverkusen played Liverpool last season.
Yeah,
so
we know.
I should just let you know before you get too excited. Someone said to me that I should be playing Push It for the Ryan Gravenberch chant vibes. That has very much come across my mind. I'm still on the fence of where I'm going to do it, because it's actually quite a hard song to mix in and out of, just for the nuts and bolts of it. But anyway, we're going to be asking you all for your input over the course of the show with questions and with the chat. But we should go referring back to the agenda, because I spent some time working on it. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about from the world of international football, which I know is not always universally popular around these parts, but I always think it's worth keeping an eye on it when the Reds are in action, even if they're in action for other people. So the Dutchies all had a good time. All 4 of them now.
Jeez, yeah.
The quartet.
Oh, yeah, there's 4 of them, and we've got a Dutch manager. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Gakpo got himself an assist.
I saw it. It was simply the most Gakpo assist you ever. When I heard people go, great assist by Gakpo, come up on my timeline, I thought before I even saw the footage of it, I thought, I bet you I know what this assist looks like.
Inside, curl to the back post.
He quietly, Gackers, as he likes to be called, is... this is going to sound mean, a one-trick pony, but it is a good trick. He's probably, no, it's not, that's unfair, but it is, he's got that assist in him and a variation on it, which is a goal, quite frankly.
You know who else is a one-trick pony? Iron Robin. And you know
Yeah.
he made a very good career out of that one trick.
Well, yeah.
And people knew that trick, but they still couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And that's who I think of whenever I think of Cody. So all 4 of them did well. Interestingly enough, Frimpong was playing on the right winger, not a right back.
I noticed that. Did he play well?
I think he did play well. I didn't see large parts of the game. I just saw highlight clips. But yeah, he did well. There was one of those Gakpo crosses that he almost got on the end of himself. So it's a nice little connection building there. Conor Bradley was playing as a right wing back for Northern Ireland.
Right.
Played 70 minutes there. But I think this is just a case of the fact that they've got 3 centre-halves that they think are good, and they want to kind of release him. He's their best player. So they want to give him as much ground as possible.
Cafu, quite frankly. He's their playmaker.
So it's interesting for me that he's getting more space and more freedom. Speaking of right backs, let's talk about England, shall we? it's interesting to see that Thomas Tuchel for this game against Andorra, in his squad, he had Reece James,
Yeah.
he had Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he had Kyle Walker, 3 right backs.
Yeah.
And who's he play at right back?
Curtis
Jones, which I thought was a little bit like, I mean, to be fair, Reece James was playing at left back, and Trent did come on later on in the game.
and Kyle Walker's fucked.
Everyone
To be technical.
Everyone who's heard me talk for more than 2 minutes knows my feelings on Kyle Walker. But the interesting thing for me was not only that Curtis was your right back, but Jordan Henderson was starting in midfield. I don't think we can call it an unmitigated success because England only beat Andorra.
Did you watch the whole game?
No, thankfully, no. I did not. I watched enough of it to know that it was not unmitigated success. They looked like they could not be bothered.
Yeah. But Curtis came out of it man of the match, didn't he, more or less?
I thought that he was, I mean, maybe we are going to be a bit kind to him because obviously we love him. But I think like he did the job that he was asked to do very well. But how do you think it felt to him? Like, what do you make of that decision first up for Tuchel to put him in there? Was it just simply the same way when Slot did it, where it's like, I'm trying to get more midfielders onto the pitch? Or
Question. I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing Andorra, and although England did their best not to beat Andorra, he probably thought he could pick his weakest selection from his squad and should be able to beat them with goals to spare. Didn't turn out that way.
Yeah.
He probably wanted to maybe try some things like Reece James at left back. He probably thought Kyle Walker is barely the future. Trent is going to have to go and play the Club World Cup. So why don't I find out something I don't know? How Curtis Jones is going to work in this situation. When I'm playing a minnow and I want to get more midfielders on the pitch, as you suggest, I suspect he thought I might learn something, whereas if I play the others there, what am I learning, really?
I guess so. That's true. I mean, I wonder how Curtis felt about it.
Pleased to start get an England start.
I guess he's still at that stage where any England start is a good one, and he has started quite a few now recent times, hasn't he? Feels like he's almost getting his feet under the table within that squad.
He's having an interesting career, Curtis. I don't think it's quite gone in the direction he would have liked to have gone when he really started to kick on at the end of the 22-23 season, I would say. He came back in, having been in the wilderness and with injuries for that last 11 games, and scored about 4 goals in the run-in. And I remember there was suddenly talk of, hang on, because he's, 2.5 years ago, so he's probably only 21, 22 then. Curtis could be about to kick on and become one of the star men of the team. You felt like he had no ceiling, really, to a degree. Now, over the last 2 seasons, especially this season, he's become a mainstay in the squad. He's seeing a lot of action, and yet you wouldn't say he's in any way nailed down a first-team place.
No.
So to that extent, I think if you said the Curtis 2 years ago, I'd be quite disappointed at where the Curtis today is in some respects. But also, he could be positive about it and go, I play in a really competitive environment. It's quite possible I could have ended up, to be brutally frank about it, where Harvey Elliott is looking for a new club.
Yeah.
But I'm a Liverpool squad mainstay. And also, I'm beginning to be taken seriously by England managers. And also, the fact that he's becoming more and more of a utility player is possibly going to stand him in good stead. I mean, he's moving further and further back in his career. You wonder if he's going to be in goalie in 5 years or something. Lol. But do you know what I mean? It's no bad thing to be able to have all these strings to your bow. If you're not the elitist of elite in terms of the way you're being perceived by managers, and I don't think any manager thinks he's a first name on my team sheet, it's a very useful thing to have to be able to play multiple positions.
Yeah, I agree. I do think there's a slight part of him is probably thinking, that bloody Henderson though, I wish he'd get. I thought I got rid of him, but he keeps coming back. But yeah, you're right. I do think that he will look at the versatility as a way to keep himself in that squad, and any feelings he has about his Liverpool career, he can just look at that Premier League winners medal in his back pocket and feel pretty good about himself. So some more Liverpool players. Ibu was part of a French team that conceded 5 against Spain. It was a hell of a game, that anyone who watched it. While Florian Wirtz, still not quite yet a Liverpool player, but someone who we've all been keeping an eye on. I know that you watched him twice.
Oh, yeah.
He left a mark on fans with the goal, and then he left a mark on a pair of Portuguese Manx, which I think pleased a lot more Liverpool fans than the actual goal he scored. What have you made of his 2 games so far? Under all of the pressure of all the speculation, we have to acknowledge.
The second game, I have to confess, I watched on a phone. I paid the Amazon Prime £2.49 to watch it. Put it on a table in a pub and tried to watch it. It was so small, I couldn't work out. Every time I saw a good line-breaking pass, I assumed it was Florian Wirtz. Oh, yeah. So I think he played well against France, that is. And he did play well against Portugal.
Yeah, he did.
You know, he is the standout player in that Germany team. There's no doubt about it. It's not the best environment to watch him in, but yeah, he was the standout player.
Yeah, and how did you feel about him introducing himself, particularly to Bernardo Silva?
That's nice. I mean, this is one of those things, what's he like off the ball? Leaving your mark is just a little signpost that he's of what kind of competitor he is. I mean, I'm not getting involved with the bants about, he nearly broke Bernardo Silva's leg. I mean,
he did.
He didn't. You know, I'm just more interested in what it signposts. Is he a competitor? Is he someone who's a bit of can pick up a yellow card? Well, yeah, maybe he is. I mean, he does pick up the odd yellow card. We're told he's a really hard-working footballer as well as being incredibly silky and creative. I'm anxious to get a sense of what kind of a counter-presser he is. Is he the sort of player that wins you the ball high up, 30 yards from goal? Because if he is, then teams are going to be in trouble, because his first touch may be to nick the ball off you. His second touch will be to put somebody clean through.
Well, he's definitely someone who gets there quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not he's got the skills to kind of nick the ball off your toe, Alan McAllister, I'm not 100% sure. But
Firmino's the best nicker of a ball off a toe I've ever seen.
He's insanely good at that. Shout out to Bobby. I'm not sure where Wirtz is on that scale, but I know that he gets there. He gets in people's faces. He works hard. Yeah. Even in that game that I mentioned against Portugal, late in the game, he was tracking back. He was running deep into his own half to try and front up, to try and help get another goal back to get back in the game. So, and this is a stage of the season where he's had a long season. It's quite easily for some players to just not take it as seriously as others. He knows that his place in the squad is pretty secure. So It's not like he's fighting for his place, but he's maybe kind of auditioning to his new fan base to show you what kind of person he is. So
I wonder if it's, I mean, firstly, he probably played well and put that shift in because that's the way he approaches football, and that's at all times and in training, etc. And that's why he's got to the way he has so quickly. But also, I think, if you're being talked about as the big signing, the biggest transfer of the summer possibly, all eyes are on you. Yeah. You don't want social media going, did you see Wirtz last night? What the hell is that? Is money is being talked about for him? You don't want that narrative.
No, you don't want Liverpool to have another reason to try to haggle an extra million quid off the top.
Exactly. You want to go in the other way.
Yeah. So we're not going to go too deep into the whole saga that is the ongoing transfer, because we did that to death last week and nothing really has changed. I don't think either our opinions on it has changed.
I think the gap between the clubs has changed. I think we're near the finishing line.
We're getting there. So let's move on to someone else who we touched on a little bit, but there has been some significant developments since Luis Diaz.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't play for South America. In fact, him and Nunes were suspended, so they didn't play. McAllister's still recovering from his little niggle, so he wasn't picked. Yeah. Alisson was the only one of our South Americans who played, got a clean sheet. But Diaz didn't play. He will probably play Wednesday against Argentina. But the developments are that Liverpool have officially rejected the approach from Barcelona. It's not come direct from the mouths of Liverpool, but it's come from reliable mouths.
We don't know what their bid was.
We don't know what their bid was. We all know that it was them trying to register interest in trying to sign Luis Diaz. Liverpool said no. But all of those same reports seem to intimate that Liverpool aren't interested in giving him a new deal either, which I thought was telling.
Of course.
Because you say that you don't want to sell someone, but you also say that you're not giving them a new deal, which says two things are going to happen. One, you're going to change your mind on one of those two things. Or two, he's going to end up leaving on a free in 2 years' time. I still don't think that that's the most likely scenario, him leaving on a free. I think the more likely is going to be we either sell him or we give him a new deal. Now, to listen to Diaz, he wants a new deal. He wants to stay. He's kind of spoken about that, and he said that if Liverpool don't change their mind on a new deal, that's when he'll be looking to leave. He said that he's been talking to other people. So, how do you feel about how this is playing out, how Liverpool are dealing with it, and Diaz kind of intimating that he would be maybe slightly disgruntled at staying without giving him the new deal?
Did he hint at that? I don't know if he's direct. I think he would be, but I don't know if I think he was more diplomatic than.
Well, no. I mean, I took that from him exploring his options and saying that it was down to Liverpool. Saying it was down to Liverpool. Really.
It's a game of poker being played. There's an unknown in this, in understanding Liverpool. I think Diaz's perspective is clear. I think Diaz is at a key phase in his career where he knows his next contract is his richest contract. And he has to get that somehow. And the sooner he gets that, the better. And he's sort of the mind of, as long as it's from a good club, he's not that bothered, quite frankly. He doesn't ideally want to semi-retire himself in Saudi.
No.
We'll come back to that. The big unknown in this is there is a level of money Liverpool would do business at. That's implied in all this. There's a high enough fee where Liverpool go, whoa, hang on a second, we'll take that. Actually, no, we're not hang on a second, we will take it.
Yeah.
But what we don't know is, I don't think Liverpool will take a fee for Diaz without having a replacement in mind for Diaz. Now, we don't know how advanced they are in that search, or if they've got a nod from somewhere. Let's pick a name out of a hat, Anthony Gordon, right? If they've spoken to Gordon and they said, look, if there's a way we can move the players around the squad and make space for you, and we come up with a decent bid, are you still up for the move? If he said yes, and if Liverpool have sounded Newcastle and said, look, if the price is right, would you still consider talking about Gordon? And they said, well, maybe. If they think there is a potential to a deal to be done there, they'd go, in an ideal world, would we trade Anthony Gordon for Luis Diaz? In hindsight, I think doing it a year ago when it was mooted, not literally trade, I mean, sell one by the other. Yeah. A year ago when it was mooted, Gordon had a good season and Diaz had just an okay season. He convinced other people and not some people. I think last 12 months shows that at this moment in time, Luis Diaz is a better player than Anthony Gordon. You could argue Gordon's been moved around the pitch a bit, but so's Diaz. I think Diaz is the better player. But Diaz is 28, Anthony Gordon's 23, something like that.
Yes. 24.
24. So Gordon's got improving to do. You get a lot more mileage out of Gordon. Diaz may only have a couple of years more at his peak for a winger. So Liverpool would probably take that trade in the wider sense if they could. So I don't know. I think what they don't want to do is sell him to Barcelona on the cheap.
No.
They don't just want him out the door. I think Arne Slot, let's stop talking about the wider Liverpool, Arne Slot himself would say, I'd actually really like to keep that player. He's really useful to me.
Yes.
I picked him every game I could. Right?
Well, exactly.
I don't really want to sell him. But Liverpool had gone, well, if we could get a lot of money and you would get you a good replacement, would you be okay with that? Especially if he was younger. And he went, I could live with that. So I think that's where we are. I think what Liverpool want is they'd like a big fat offer from Al Hilal or Al Nassr, and for Diaz to be tempted by the wage offer. And the reason they're closing the door on making him an offer is because they think if they do, he'll just go, well, I've got Barcelona or Liverpool. I don't need to worry about any business from Saudi, and I don't want to do that because I don't want to semi-retire. Liverpool want to force that.
Interesting. We'll have to wait and see exactly how that plays out. I think this is one that's...
Did we talk about this last week, by the way?
We talked a little bit. We touched a little bit. But
I've done so many podcasts about Luis Diaz in the last week.
This was before all of the stuff about Barcelona had officially come out. So it was still a bit more hypothetical.
Yeah.
We knew that Barcelona had talked about him as being a player they were interested in. We didn't know that there'd been an official approach that had been rebuffed, and Liverpool had said that they weren't going to. So that part is the new information. So yeah, I do think it's very worth revisiting for sure. Ian Schroeder said, is Gordon really the same player as he was 12 months ago? I think that he's very much young enough to have had a down year and come back and have an up year, I think. Although I do also think that it's strange because a lot of time when I'm looking at players, I'm looking at their numbers. I kind of pay attention to who takes set pieces when someone has high assist numbers, and he is someone who takes set pieces, but we've just lost one of our set piece takers, so that not necessarily as such.
We
a bad
might be
thing.
about to buy one who takes a mean set piece, by the way. Florian takes a free kick, he takes a corner.
Yes, this is true. This is true. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Slot's baldy head reminded me that Curtis Jones made 74 out of 76 successful passes in that game against Andorra. I'd like to see the direction of some of them, but I mean, he certainly kept to the ball.
Slot's ball. I had to process what you were saying there.
Yeah, sorry.
A fella who calls himself on the internet Slot's baldy head. Hi, Slot's baldy head.
It wasn't literally kind of he opened it up.
Yes.
I mean, according to reports, he's somewhere on the beach anyway, so I'm not sure he'd be listening to the show again. I mean, if you are listening, hiya mate, have a drink on us.
He just comes back wrecked. He comes back. He's becoming an alcoholic in the summer. Ends up he's sleeping in his car. He's a totally different man. It just went to his head. He lost the plot.
He's just got like a sunburned penis on the back of his head where someone's just given a stencil on him. He's fallen asleep in the sun. You know, these things happen to not to me. Michael Bennett mentioned that he did a gig in West Kirby on Saturday and he came on stage to the grandstand theme and it went down the storm. Something for me to think about there.
Okay.
Okay. But it's time to move on in general to the community questions. Because we had loads of great questions from you all, and I've picked out a few who I think you'd be able to answer on the fly. One of them you have literally already answered, but I want to kind of use it as a jumping off point to talk about some more stuff. First one here is from Daniel Hume. Who's the one player you wished had stayed for one more year? I still think Carragher would have gotten us over the line in 13-14 for the title if he'd stayed.
God, but they're not going to let us not do football questions, are they?
No.
These guys. Who could have done... Do you think Carragher done what he thinks?
Oh, well, he thinks that. I tend to concur with him. He wouldn't have been my first choice, but...
That's an interesting one. And you did feel for Jamie, sort of as they honed in on the title, that wasn't that he might...
It would have been doing his head in.
Yeah. But he might have hauled one more season out of himself. But who else? So what's the question about an older player?
Someone who left and maybe
left.
They shouldn't have stayed for a little bit longer.
Harvey Elliott.
Topical. I like that.
Who is in? I mean, we can't name the ones who we'd love to have said, like Luis Suarez, for example. I mean, that would have been nice. Torres, no. But it's almost like who do we park almost, and then you think that could have been another year.
So my answer is Peter Crouch, because he left because of Torres, and if he'd have stayed, if we'd have had him,
why did he leave because of Torres?
Well, because Liverpool Rafa only played one striker, and it's clear that Torres was the golden boy. And it was going to be him, so he.
I see when Torres joined. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So there wasn't really going to be space for him. If we'd have had him in 08-09. When Torres got injured, he'd have been there to come in. I mean, you think about how many games we drew in that season. He would have been able to come in there, sneaking a winner here or there. And I just think and then you think about another 18 months down the line, Torres is gone, Rafa's gone. I mean, I dare say Roy Hodgson probably would have picked him. But you think about his whole Liverpool career could have definitely been extended beyond that 1 year if he'd have just maybe held on a little bit longer. I understand he wanted to go and play football, but I just think if we'd have had him for that season, he might have been the thing that made the difference.
I mean, in my lifetime as a Liverpool supporter, there's a real standout of a player we let go at least a year too early.
Pete Beardsley.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's by a country mile, the answer, I'm afraid.
I know, that's a very, very strong answer. And one I didn't think of until you started talking. I was just like, oh yeah, obviously it's him. Okay, so here's another one that you have... Oh, no, here's a good one, and it's non-football. So Mark Murphy, he wanted to know how you got into the pub business, which we kind of covered last week, but he also wanted to know why you came to Liverpool. Now, some people won't know this story, so I would like you to tell us again, please.
The very quick answer is because I support Liverpool, right? And so I was born and went to school in London. lived a couple of other countries in between. My dad's job moved around, but broadly, about 13 of my first 18 years of life were spent in London, in schools in London. And my dad wasn't born in this country and grew up not interested in football. I only got into football about the age of 10, 1977. My best friend at my primary school was a Portuguese lad, Michael Pinto. Don't know where Michael is now. Hi, Michael. If by some miracle you're watching this, I doubt
All
it.
the time we spent in Portugal, you've never bumped into him.
It's not that small. Michael's a Lisboner. I tend to be in the south of Portugal when I'm there. Even so. So Mike, because his dad was Portuguese. They'd come over to live in England, and he had no affinity to any English clubs. So he supported Liverpool as the best club. And I remember there was that one year at school where everyone got into figurine Panini stickers.
Yeah.
And the Liverpool stickers were quite prized, certainly by him. They were prized by him, and he got me into it. And I had no interest in football to that point. And I sort of got swept up in it. The red kits looked really appealing. But the funny thing was, I went from sort of this very sort of notional thing about, he was singing songs about this new player this team in red had called Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, I'll start collecting the stickers. It's something to do a bit of swaps in the playground. I went from that mild interest in it, in my own mind's eye, to within about 2 months being as hardcore and committed to the whole idea of it as I am now. Yeah. As in, within 2 months it took to be totally obsessed. I couldn't be at the games then, but I was by a transistor radio back then, listening to every bulletin, listening to every commentary I could. I was obsessed with it. So I became obsessed at the age of 10. I mean, then as I got a bit older, started to get to games, firstly ones in London. Then when I got past the age of like 13, 14, I was able to get the train up north and got to see half a dozen home games a season. And when it came to when I done my A-levels, was doing my A-levels, and you have to choose a university, there was only one place I wanted to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And my parents were very much, you want to go to Liverpool? Why? And I couldn't say to them, because I just want to be close to the Reds.
You need a serious answer.
You can't be that, they wanted me to be taking educational opportunities seriously. So I bullshitted them. I think I even put Manchester ahead in my UCAS form. In fact, if I had Cambridge first, I did Cambridge entrance. And I mean, I semi-sabotaged that. I mean, it's quite hard, not difficult to sabotage. It's hard to get into. But I passed the exam and not the interview. So that was out of the way, and then I had to get Manchester out of the way. And then I bullshitted them that there was a proper history course at Liverpool that Manchester didn't have. They weren't paying enough attention. And there I was. I was in Liverpool, 18. Couldn't believe how my life had gone in the direction I'd engineered it to go. And I thought I'd be there for 3 years, enjoy being close to the team, and then have to go back home to London and find a job. But I managed to manipulate again that I had to find, to be honest with you, there weren't jobs in Liverpool. I had to sort of engineer setting up in business myself, and that's sort of how I ended up in the pub game in a roundabout way.
Wow. That's good. It's funny how similar.
It's down to Kenny Dalglish, by the way.
Yeah, it's funny how similar your story is to mine. Only just a few little tweaks. So for me, it was John Barnes, not Kenny Dalglish. I am a little bit younger. Also, I failed in my mission to get to Liverpool University because the course that I wanted to do, and I'd spent the previous 3 years telling everybody in my family that I wanted to do, was something journalism related. And none of the Liverpool University or John Moore's journalism courses were quite right. None of them did it.
No one did. Well, you're younger than me. When I was doing it, there was no. You had to go to Preston where they did a specific journalist course. And who wants? No offence, Preston, but Jesus.
So I went to Staffordshire University, which is in Stoke-on-Trent, and I mean, very similar thing. It was a strange situation because I was also low-key, without telling anybody, looking at places that was all coursework because I was good at exams, but I hated exams. I hated exams so much. So I was like, I don't want to have to do exams. I don't want to have any kind of final exam. I just want it to be all coursework. What I didn't realise was how important or how good a strategy that was, because what coursework meant was you experience, real life experience of doing the thing. So in my course, I ended up actually writing sports reports and sending them off to newspapers. I actually wrote a script, like a little three part screenplay. I actually had to be in front of the camera. I had to be behind camera. So I had all this real world experience of doing all this stuff. My best friend, he went to university in Liverpool and I went to university in Stoke. So I was like, okay, well, I can come and visit you. You're close enough for me to come and visit. A lot. And that was when the plan was formed for me to move here and live with him. And that's exactly how it worked out. So yeah, you got 2 for the price of 1 in your origin stories there. Okay, so Mr. Baldy wants to go back to football, but this is a question I know that you and I have discussed, so I'm interested to hear your take on it. What are your thoughts on the extortionate prices of the hospitality tickets? Because I know that you're a hospitality geezer, or at least have been.
Sort of. Extortionate prices. This is an origin story about season tickets. I mean, I've sat everywhere in the ground for when I first started going, right, 13, 13. I think I first went to Anfield probably my first ever game was maybe 11 or 12, but I went on the Cop a lot. My first season ticket I got was a year before I came to university, funded by a paper round I'd been doing. I think it was like 75 quid or something in 1984.
Bloody hell.
85 season was a bad season as well. Everton won the fucking league. And I was in the main stand at the very back with like a partial obstructed view. And I sat there till the year the Centenary stand opened, which was when the Kemlin was converted. And they were offering these new kind of season tickets, which were nominally hospitality, but they weren't that much more expensive than normal season tickets. But you got a better spec and you got access to what at the time was what they called a lounge. And it was sort of like a British Legion function lounge. You could buy pie and chips and fish and chips and they had a bar. But basically you could get there when you like before kickoff and you could be having a pint in there and go to your seat within 5 minutes of your last sip.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, and also being a great seat. And also I think it had an extra bonus benefit that included the cup games. So I stayed there and I've been there since, me and my best mate, and we had another ticket. And now I sit there with my 2 boys. Yeah. I've always been there. And the prices, I'm not going to talk about what they cost, but they're incredibly reasonable for those OG tickets. What I do know, and this gets controversial, is when I first was in that particular tier, this is I would sort of call it the lowest tier of hospitality then, and probably is now as well. But I love it because I love my spec in the ground. And I can't let go of it, right?
No.
It's just, I mean,
it becomes a part of your experience, seeing it through your eyes. Once you've had, that's your spot.
Well, you let the season ticket go, you're back at a queue of 25,000, quite frankly. So I'm not letting that go, whatever they charge me for it, to be crude.
Hope you're not listening.
Yeah, I hope you're not listening. Well, the funny thing was, right, I don't know if anyone from LFC is listening, they want to think about this, is of that original category, it was still is called the Premier Club. They've got all kinds of different tiers in the Centenary stand. I don't know how many tickets they had of that category, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500. At the beginning, I would say 95% of us weren't corporate people. We were just seasonal we were now called seasonal hospitality. We were just season ticket holders who wanted a slightly better season ticket. There weren't business people who were entertaining clients. They tended to go in the more expensive ones, which are sort of higher tiered ones, and end up in boxes and all have 3-course meals and things like that.
Yeah.
But down the years, because they're that bit pricier, people dropped out and dropped those tickets, or maybe got a chance to switch to cheaper tickets. But as they dropped out, they didn't sell them again. The club didn't sell them again to seasonal people. They sold them to, quite frankly, as day trip packages. Yeah. So the club very beneficently gives me an option of selling if I couldn't make a game, and I never don't make a game, so this doesn't happen. But if I wanted to, I could sell my ticket back to them for is a very modest price, which they would then sell on as a package to, let's say, a Norwegian hospitality company for about 3 or 4 times what I pay for it. You know, you don't want to dig too deep into the morality of that. And I didn't want to use this as a platform to call the club out, but it's something that somebody needs to explain
There
to
are
the
a
fans.
few other friends of mine who I'm in supporters groups and WhatsApp groups with who take extreme issue with this particular issue.
Yeah.
And it is a weird situation because the club do work hard to try to clamp down on touts, and lots of people who may well have fallen foul of touts have been punished for X, Y, and Z, but then they are
What
also...
do you call it when you charge for your own tickets X percentage more than you sold them for originally? What do you call that?
If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck,
Yep.
it's probably a duck.
It's probably a duck.
But yeah, you're right.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'll say only one thing in their defence. If tickets are going to be sold for overinflated, shall we call them tout prices, I'd rather my football club benefit than actual touts. But either way, it's not a great thing.
Maybe that's where that extra million for Florian Wirtz is going. Who
Well,
knows?
if they sell me that story, I'll stop whinging.
Yes. So if Robbo's son's watching, don't clip that part. Moving on, because it is a question that you've already answered, but it's a jumping off point for something I'm always interested in. Kazucha wanted to ask you specifically about the Guinness 2-part pour and how crucial it is for the best pint, or is it just absolute marketing nonsense? So first of all, I want your answer, but then I want to talk about marketing nonsense in the pub world because it fascinates me.
Okay. Funnily enough, this got asked on one of the threads on the Late Challenge yesterday, didn't it? On X. My understanding of it, and I wish I could give a scientifically perfect answer, considering I'm in the Guinness selling industry. But it absolutely is important. If you don't do it, you certainly won't get the look and feel of the perfect pour. I mean, I'm very, very well versed on what a perfect pour of Guinness is like, and in all our pubs, we train it extensively and we do refresher courses.
Something that really matters to people who drink Guinness.
It really matters, and we work very closely with Guinness to make sure we do as good a quality and consistent a quality of pour as we can across the thing. I know that sounds like I'm advertising, but it is just true. And I know damn well that you have to the pouring to the 2/3, 3/4 level, and then the weight are important. The weight is the hidden ingredient, really, not the hidden, but the vital ingredient to my mind. People often say Guinness tastes better in Ireland, and I'm never sure if that's true or would stand up to a blind taste test. What I have noticed in Ireland is they take longer to do the second pour, and I think it's important. And one of the reasons they do is because it's that bit more popular, because it is the native drink. And what Irish pubs will tend to do, because they know they're going to sell an enormous amount of Guinness. It's not like when people walk up to a bar in England, you know, your bar person doesn't know whether they're going to order 2 pints of lager, a cask ale, and a vodka Coke. In Dublin, say, they know there's going to be a lot of Guinness in that round. So what they're doing, if you watch on their bars, is they're pre-pouring Guinness. Yeah. So they will have, at an average bar, you walk in a busy Dublin pub, 5 or 6 pints of Guinness, 2/3, 3/4 poured, and they've probably been there for 2 minutes before you've walked in. Yeah. So there's a sweet spot of how you obviously can't leave it too long, but definitely taking your time is very, very important. And yes, it is important. It is not marketing bullshit.
No. So I've got a reply on X from Barry Kelly, who says the beer rises as it settles. So if you one pour, it overflows and then it sinks. Whereas if you get to the 3/4 settle, then you top it up, it gets the proper meniscus.
I know, great word.
But as I said,
viscosity was what I would have used, but I think meniscus sounds great.
So thanks for that, Barry. But as I said, I wanted this as a jumping off point for kind of marketing gear, because there are so many things in my time being a DJ and my brief time as a barman, which I think, why are we doing this? And the bars were so adamant that it was important. So I'll give you a couple of examples.
Go on.
One, the bottom filling pint glass. Those weird things where you put it and it fills from the bottom.
Don't know. I don't know what that's about. I've seen it, but I don't understand it.
And another one is sticking with the Guinness theme, is people doing the shamrock on top of the Guinness. Like, I've been in places where people were as adamant about that as they were about the 2-pour pint. And I just think, why? Why is this part so important? And how much are you doing the marketer's job for them by being so enamored in these things that don't really matter.
I've had conversations about this. I would say most purists now, people who know their Guinness, people who love their Guinness, people in Ireland think that's a load of wank, right? to be blunt about it, and it's just there for tourists or first-time Guinness drinkers to impress them. I mean, there was a time when somebody probably said, "Tell me I'm wrong," that I thought it served a little bit of a purpose of demonstrating you'd poured the dome, the domage, the head of the Guinness properly, because without that firmness, you can't really do a decent shamrock. If you haven't poured it properly, you haven't done the weight, you haven't done the 2/3 or 3/4 thing, you haven't done those prior bits properly, the Guinness is a bit too watery and thin to be able to pull that off. So in a way, you've earned the right to do it by pouring the Guinness properly, and it's almost like a stamp or a seal that is a correctly poured Guinness. So somebody might tell me, no, it isn't. It's bullshit, and you can do it in any kind of Guinness. I'm not sure. Personally, I think there was a time where I was impressed by it myself and would have liked staff to do it if they could. Now we definitely don't direct people to do it. If someone wants to do it, they like it, they've enjoyed perfecting the art of it. The bar person's done that for me. I'm not going to stop them. I'm not going to say you can't, but it is a bit of wank.
Yeah, and I think that you see it with coffee shops where they do all
the
different
espresso,
stuff.
cappuccino, dusting.
And it's like that kind of has a machine that has kind of the shorter nozzle, so it feels more like a pen. So I understand it with that, but yeah, don't. If you've spent all that time pouring me a proper pint of Guinness, like, don't then waste my time doing the fancy shamrock. Just give me the damn pint. It's
a small indicator. Look, it's like all theatre involved in food or drink presentation, right?
Oh, we could go down that road as well.
Yeah, but you know, we eat with the eye, we drink with the eye. Also, I think people do it. Bar people who do it to signal that they are technicians. That there's more. That they've got more skill than might be apparent when they just get you a Coke or a pint of lager. They're demonstrating, and I don't want to ever be part of criticising that. I think it's a nice thing.
Okay, fair enough. You're too deep within it, so you're not going to criticize. Yeah. I still think it's stupid. Well, maybe not always stupid, but a lot of times unnecessary. Okay, so let's kind of bring it all back together, because this is something that you started discussing off air, and I want to bring it in. The aforementioned Barry Kelly, he wanted to bring in a new segment called Old School Banger of the Week. Okay. And he recommended the absolute classic Sweet Harmony by Liquid. I don't know if you've heard it. Do you remember it? It's like da 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 da.
It's a house tune.
Da da da.
Well, like that's every house tune.
Yeah, but it's the original one that sounds like that.
I think I sort of.
Yeah. I'm not going to sing it. Don't worry. I'm not going to do that to you all. But going back to what I was originally saying about talking about songs I'm still thinking about putting in, that's a very tempting.
It's the whole notion. You said we were going to talk about the notion of what is a banger. Where does it begin and end? I think that's slightly more interesting than picking a banger. I don't remember hearing that phrase really. Certainly not more than 10 years ago that people talked about. Maybe they did, but not now. It's talked about routinely as a tune you love is
it's
a
lost
banger.
All meaning.
It's lost all meaning. I think Barry means it in the spirit of the golden age of dance, which is the rave era, right? So the question is best answered with something, a tip of the hat to that. I mean, from when I was young, the first music I liked, it would be broadly called new wave or electro now. And I think if you make me pick a tune off the top of my head, I'd say something like Love Action by the Human League is a banger, right? And if you've never heard that and you don't hear it, I go, yeah, it's a banger. But from the golden age, a bit for something like "Ray of Light" by Madonna is a classic for me. I don't know, there's so many.
I know Dan Morgan's a big fan of that song. I know that we've had many conversations about how he feels it's one of the greatest songs of the whole decade.
And who produced that again?
William Orbit.
That's it, William Orbit. Yeah.
But for me, so talking about the meaning of a banger, for me, a banger has to be something that you put it on in a club and everybody dances. Not just everyone likes the song. It has to have the element of movement. It has to force you into movement.
You've got no choice. It's going to fill the floor.
So the amount of times I still read a lot of music reviews. I used to be a music reviewer, so I'm still interested in hearing what people are saying about things. And there are times when there's a new artist or a new album that's come out and I don't know anything about it, so I'll read what people have said about it. Or there'll be like a recommendations page on like a Bandcamp or something like that, and I'm reading what they said about it, and they'll use the word banger. And when I see the word banger, I think, okay, well, this one's going to be up tempo. Maybe I can play it in DJ. And then it's just this really slow, morose thing, and I'm like, no, this is not a banger.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's got to grab. You may not love it in tune. You may not be not your taste in music, but it's got to sort of grab.
Yes,
it's got to smash you in the face.
It must bang.
Yeah.
The clue is in the name.
Tempo is essential. The tempo is implied. Surely that's a starting point.
Okay, so Julian Paston has put "Baby D, Let Me Be Your Fantasy," and that is what I'm talking about, because it's got the moment where you kind of put your hands up. Again, I was at school when that song came out, so it does have a very special place in my heart. But that's the kind of thing, very similar to the Sweet Harmony with the piano bits. Or someone's put Lady by Mojo. Lady, hear me tonight.
Yeah.
That's another one.
What's the song I love, which I think it's Northern Soul. There's quietly there's a lot of classics in the Northern Soul era. Is it In the Night by Frankie Valli?
Yes.
See, I think that's a banger.
Yes.
An early version of a banger.
So I had a really interesting kind of journey with that song, because someone once requested it to me and I'd never heard of it. And I'd heard of Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons because my auntie used to listen to it. And I was like, what? You want to hear one
I
of
knew
his
Grease
songs?
is the Word from the Grease movie by Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, which I like as a tune.
Yeah, I mean, I like it more than the film, but that's another conversation. But I went back and listened to the song and I was like, holy shit, this is great.
It's
This is
an
and
amazing
I
tune.
started playing it.
And it
loads.
sounds kind of like someone could have done it in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like the production and just the way it kind of swells.
Yeah.
And then it just gets to the...
Such a groove.
Yeah, honestly, fantastic. So yeah, The Night. Shout out to Frankie.
Here's a question for you. What's the earliest example in music history you can think of which you think you could call a banger in some respects, in the spirit of the term?
Okay.
I've just thought of one which is really as far back as I think 1962, right? And it's not a dance floor classic in the sense that post 90 or 90 stuff. I Saw Her Standing There by the Beatles off Please Please Me.
Yeah.
It's kind of, of its time, it's a banger.
No, it is. And it's still got that kind of the dancing element. So the ones I instantly thought of when you said that was Little Richard.
Yeah,
basically anything from early Little Richard. So like, Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, all them gears.
Yeah, they're just
like they get you, and you see pictures of him, or even like what's his name, the guy with the mad hair.
Oh,
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
So any
Goodness
of his,
gracious.
Yeah, Great Balls of Fire. That's that's a banger.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine people first hearing that just being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like you just never heard anything like this before.
So frantic, that music, in a way that it hadn't been heard before, that you have to do something to it. Have a heart attack maybe, but something.
But yeah, now I'm probably not going to play Jerry Lee Lewis at Glastonbury. Maybe there's probably too many skeletons in his closet, but he very much extols them.
Kid skeletons.
I was trying to say it without saying it.
Sorry,
so Jesus
sounded quite
Christ.
funny. Lol, kid skeletons.
So anyway,
moving on.
But yes, he does embody the banger. So thank you for that, Jerry. We are moving on.
That bombshell.
Oh, here's a nice one. We're getting close to the end of the first hour, and I'm going to be a little bit more tight on the time than was last week. I was quite loose and baggy with the time, but we're going to be tight because we have another show. For all of you who don't know, there is a subscriber show that's happening after this main show where we've got a whole other set of questions, a whole other set of things to go through.
Yeah, we're going to be much funnier, much more interesting.
We're going to actually eat some of these crisps that I've only just remembered we haven't divvied out.
That's worth paying for.
Well, I mean, these are the people. I should point out that these crisps, the local Chicago crisps here. So
nothing's going to top last season's Tom Yum guy crisps.
You think so? The Tom Yam crisps is still your number one. Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
But we've got hot dog flavour and a hot gyard, which I'm still fascinated by what the hell that is. Okay. But you'll be finding out in the subscriber show. But before we leave you for this one, JD Wims, I think it's Wims, it's WMS. I'd like to know how it feels to have a job that probably feels more like a hobby than work. My cousin once floated the idea of starting a company that designed Liverpool-related cards, but I'd love to know if there was a way I could make a living through my main passion. Well, you've come to the right place on that, because that's what the two of us have been doing for most of our adult lives. I'll ask you that first, Roberto. You can have first crack.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it's a big topic. I realized quite early on in my life that I didn't get life if it wasn't committed. If you need, well, you would have the best work environment, best work life if you did something as close as you could get to something you'd enjoy doing if you weren't getting paid for it. Yeah. That gets you out of bed, because just money, it's quite hard to motivate. I think, this is a fucking shitload. But even then, you've got to enjoy
you get to a point.
You've got to enjoy what you do. There's no doubt about it. If you do something which would be a hobby anyway, but it's your work. I mean, from my point of view, there has to be a business element. It's got to be commercially viable. It's got to work. I can't just open a pub business because I think I've just done a pub I love. I had so much fun creating that, and I love going to it myself, my friends. If it didn't pay its rent, if it wasn't commercially viable, then it would be such a, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do the next one. No. It's a bit like, we've talked about with music. If, if I was a musician, I'd make a record primarily for myself that I would enjoy. But if nobody bought the fucker and a record company said, well, you're not getting to do that again.
No.
Then what's the point of the exercise? Somebody's got to like your shit. And that balance, it's a time-honored concept, that balance between your hobby, which means exactly how you want to indulge your own pleasure, your pleasure synapses or whatever, and actually making something viable, commercial, that's a different thing.
I do think so. And I think, like you say, there is an absolute limit. So it has to be
a balance,
viable enough for you to be able to keep doing it without having to worry about doing other things. That's always been the balance I've treaded. I've probably climbed a bit closer to the wind than you have down the years, but mainly because
I don't think so more. I've done some things with people who've worked with me and gone, what the fuck? In fact, quite frankly, when I pivoted towards doing pure pubs, a lot of people around me went, what the fuck is he doing here? Old man pubs. What, because he's an old man? Great. That'll help grow the company. But
look at me now.
And the people in my organisation who said that are the first to go, no, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending I did it because I thought that's what the world was waiting for. I did it, as you said, as a bit of a risk because I wanted to do it and hope for the best. But people like it is another matter.
Well, I could quite easily have quit on my endeavours on multiple occasions, and I'm not even just talking about the journalism side, I'm talking about the DJing side as well. And there was quite a few times where I did have to pick up another side hustle just to keep my head above water, but I always knew that I was never going to let go of DJing. I was never going to go into the shirt and tie world forever because it felt a little bit like a noose to me.
Yeah.
I needed to have that passion. I needed to have that desire. And I've always had two lanes, music and sports. Like from the very, very beginning. Like my dad instilled those two things in me before I could probably even walk and function properly. I knew that I liked those things. Yeah. So I was always going to involve myself in that. And I had to make sacrifices at times to be able to continue to do those things. But every time I made those sacrifices, I knew it was worthwhile to me because I knew that I was going to be able to put my all into it. Like I've had jobs where, and I can say this live on camera where people can see me, I didn't care about them, so I didn't put a lot of effort into them. Like, these are mostly working in phone shops. They know who I mean, this is not news to the people who employed me. They told me this so much
I
to
did
my
a lot
face.
of jobs around student life. I was awful.
Yeah, but the idea of doing that long term, it was never viable. You need money to survive, but I also think you need to feed yourself, your personality, your human element. What is it that I am about? What do I care about the most? You need to find space to gravitate towards that.
Well, even careers advice. I mean, I think I would say, advice to youngsters, which used to be one of the questions in the shoot questionnaire for footballers, which I always love. Advice to youngsters, and they always go, listen to your teachers or your parents. I would say, have a bit of a plan. Even, set your ambition out, make it reasonable. I mean, I remember when I was young, I used to say to myself, what I most like to do in the world, even before anybody ever gave me any careers advice. And I'd say to myself, play for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Right. Thought about that for another 10 seconds and realised I couldn't even get my school team, so that wasn't going to fucking happen. The next best thing I thought would be to be paid to go to Liverpool matches, be a journalist. And like you, Mo, I wanted to, for a long part of my younger life, to be a journalist because I thought that was close. And I think if you can try and engineer your life to end up as adjacent to what you consider a hobby or a passion, that's the way to do it. And I think and if you can't see a way to doing that immediately, have a plan, have a pathway. And it might involve working in a phone shop or working in a bank or whatever for a while.
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of dough behind you, a bit of security. Maybe you do a bit of maybe your hobby becomes your side hustle. You see if you can break through. I don't know. We careers officers here. What's happening to us?
This is a
Are
really
they
good
paying
point.
for this shit?
Well, I think we can give this little bit of advice out.
Yeah, this is free.
But
We've got a side hustle to do here.
hey, you've come to our show. All we ask of you is to subscribe, to maybe click, and maybe give us some money. Keep the lights on, as Rob always likes to say. But anyway, in general, I would say if you are thinking of trying to find a way to make your passion your work, I would say start small, start to build it up. But as Rob says, have a plan. Know exactly where you want to get to and think about how it is you're going to get there. But enjoy it. It's meant to be enjoyed. Life is for living and enjoying. I think that's...
Do you know what they call it now, what I've just described? Fucking manifesting. But what is stupid, what I hate about the whole manifesting thing is it's almost like if you say you close your eyes and make a wish, that's manifesting. Whereas the true spirit of what I'm talking about, which you could call actual manifesting, is imagine yourself in that place and work logically backwards from that and believe in that process, believe in yourself to try and put each step into action. I think that's what we're saying.
And the hidden part and the difference between just kind of closing your eyes and hoping something can happen and actually doing that is you need to work hard at it. Like, you need to keep going. You need to think that you are going to do everything you can to make that dream work. Because trust me, it's worth it. But there you go. That's all.
And then
get.
you're dead.
Oh, come on. We're trying to end on a positive.
No point
here.
in anything.
So there you go. This was a show for all of you out there who's like, I like it when you riff on nonsense. So there you go. We did a lot of riffing on nonsense today. We did a lot of talking about football. We still snuck some Liverpool concepts in, and we're going to have some more. There's a couple more still to come for the subscriber show that I kind of squirreled away. There's another thing that I wanted to talk about last week, but we ran out of time, that we're definitely going to talk about this week. And there's a couple more questions from you all. So come over to Patreon. If you want to, you can get a 7-day free trial. And that 7 days, you can go back and listen to all of the other shows, listen to everything else we've said. I'll understand all of our in-jokes and all of our nonsense. But £4 a month is all you need to pay to be able to come over.
How
to
little? £4, Mo?
So it's two rides on a bus. That's all it is.
2 rides
which
on
is
the
a little
bus.
bit of a hint to what we'll be talking about soon. But for now, thank you for joining us. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Please like. Please make a comment. Please tell your friends. All these things are helpful. I've brought my friend. Please make him thankful.
Buddy.
We'll see you all in a few minutes.